Good Wednesday afternoon and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dzwierzynski here, and that's all. No Dan Lucero today. Dan has taken off for a Thanksgiving, so best wishes to him and his wife, his family, for their Thanksgiving holiday. So it's just you and me today here on the Sports Voice of Kansas and 580 Sports Talk. And of course, streaming live around the world on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the place to be for our live stream of the show. We've got another shortened show today due to Kansas State basketball. The Cats taking on LSU in their championship game tonight at the Cayman Islands Classic. 6:30 approximate start time, pregame at 5:30 on the K-State Sports Radio Network, which of course you can hear right here on 580 WIBW. We've got plenty to get to on the show today, and while it is just myself hosting today, we do have a tremendous guest list ready to go for you today. That includes the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. He is going to join us at the bottom of this hour, brought to you as always by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. We're going to talk all things Chiefs and Rams, just how good has Patrick Mahomes been recently, just how good has Chris Jones been recently. We're going to talk about all that with Mitch Holthus coming up at the bottom of this hour. We'll also be joined by Tim Fitzgerald coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for the Azura Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-up, talking all things K-State, ahead of the K-State-KU Sunflower Showdown on Saturday, and ahead of tonight's K-State Cayman Islands Classic Championship game against LSU. We'll get Fitz's thoughts on what we've seen from the Cats on the hardwood and the Tang Gang so far down in the Cayman Islands. And we've got a real treat to wrap up this shortened edition of the show today. Austin Moore, the standout linebacker and Lewisburg native for the Kansas State Wildcats, he is going to join us as we preview the matchup between K-State and KU, the clash on the Caw, shout out to Jesse Newell, and the Sunflower Showdown from the perspective of a Kansas native who plays for K-State. That's coming up as we wrap up the show today. We're going to lead things off with some KU talk, though, coming up here in just a matter of moments. Lance Leipold is not going anywhere. You absolutely love to see it, at least if you're a KU fan. So we'll talk about that. We've got some college basketball talk, KU and K-State, coming up later on this hour as well. So much coming your way here today on 580 Sports Talk. As always, you are welcome to be a part of the show on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is that text line number. And, of course, jump into the YouTube comments as well. Shout out to Vance, one of our P1s on the Sports on 580 YouTube channel. Finishing up some baking for Thanksgiving. Yeah, what are you making for Thanksgiving? Are you part of the cooking? Are you letting your spouse, whether that be your husband, your wife, your partner, whoever, are they doing the cooking? Do you just watch football all day? Let us know what your plans are for Thanksgiving. Let us know on the text line. Let us know in the YouTube comments as well. By the by, we are still getting close to our goal, I guess you could say. We don't have a time on it. We know that deadlines create action, but we are trying to get to that 100 subscriber number on YouTube. We would, of course, love to go way beyond that as well. But if you've got a YouTube account, I think all you need is a Google account. That effectively is your YouTube account, too. You don't even need to specifically make one for YouTube. But go subscribe. It's free. It's easy. All you have to do, press the button. That way, you can see all of our live streams. They pop up on your home YouTube feed. All the other videos we do, not just 580 Sports Talk and Mic'd Up Live, but when we do KU and K-State game reactions, our high school athlete of the week video interviews, recaps from Washburn games. We've got some Washburn basketball coming up tonight, by the way, over at Lee Arena. I'll be on the call for that one. It'll be listenable over on Classic Country 106.9 tonight at 6 o'clock with a 5:45 pregame. We'll get to that game coming up a little bit later on. We're excited for it, always excited for some Ichabod basketball. It's the Washburn women taking on Haskell. You may have seen on the schedule that originally they were supposed to take on Central Christian. That's no longer the case. They are now taking on Haskell. So we will we'll give you the 4-1-1 on that matchup coming up in a little bit as well. So lots to get to today on 580 Sports Talk. We would love for you to be a part of the show. Without further ado, the biggest news of the day. No, it is not that Thanksgiving is tomorrow, as wonderful as it is that one of my favorite holidays is tomorrow. It really is one of my favorite holidays, by the way. I love Thanksgiving. Always did. Family come over when I was a kid. I mean, we didn't have a very big family when I was a kid, but everyone would come over, watch football all day. parents would make the turkey. In fact, my parents are hosting this year as well. Abby, my wife, and I, we're staying here in town. But I always loved it growing up. I still love it to this day. One of my favorite holidays. It's right there with Christmas. I'm telling you, for me, it is right there with Christmas. But that is not the biggest news of the day. No, the biggest news of the day is that Kansas football already has its biggest win of the week. No, it's not a potential win over Kansas State. It's really not. That would be great. That would be massive for KU. It'd be big for K-State as well. That'll clinch them a spot in the Big 12 championship game. But no, the biggest win for KU football has already been wrapped up this week. Lance Leipold is not going anywhere. It was reported on Tuesday night by Pete Thamel of ESPN. It has since been confirmed by pretty much everybody else. Michael Swain of Fog.net, our good friend who joined us yesterday on the show right before this news broke. Matt Tate of the Lawrence Journal World. Everywhere has essentially confirmed this at this point. And actually today during the KU basketball game against North Carolina State on the KU radio broadcast, their play-by-play voice, Topeka native Brian Haney, he mentioned that, hey, we were tipped off by Travis Goff. A big announcement was going to come at some point, either today or sometime in the next couple of days. Lance Leipold is getting a new contract extension with KU. According to Pete Thamel, and we don't have exact details of the contract yet, but it is a deal through the 2029 season. It is expected to include both a handsome raise. We don't know what it'll be relative to, say, top paid football coaches in the country, or even for our local purposes, relative to what Bill Self is getting paid. We know generally football coaches make more than basketball coaches. Bill Self's got 2 national titles, so don't know if Lance Leipold will surpass that, but he's going to get a raise, and reportedly, this also includes a firm commitment, a guaranteed commitment in terms of resources, in terms of energy, in terms of effort put behind this football program at KU. I don't think you can put into words how big of a deal this is for Kansas to get this guaranteed, to get this confirmed. We've been talking about it since early October, that Lance Leipold's name was going to be a hot one, if not the hottest one on the coaching carousel this year. That a lot of schools were going to be interested. And if you believe quality reporting out there, and you should, I mean, it's guys that we know, that we've talked to on the show, that we trust. That includes our own friend, Michael Swing. He writes for Fog.net, but he joins us every week here on the show. They reported that, hey, there's been interest. The insiders for Nebraska over at 24/7 Sports, Mike Schaefer, we talked about him yesterday on the show, has reported that, yeah, Nebraska's got real interest in Lance Leipold. It was expected that Wisconsin was going to have at least cursory interest in Lance Leipold. Now, it sounds as though they are going to end up going with Jim Leonard, their interim coach, their defensive coordinator, alumnus of Wisconsin. That makes sense. But Lance Leipold won a lot at the Division III level up in Wisconsin. He's from Wisconsin. People in Wisconsin care a lot about the Badgers, even if they go to one of the many D3 schools up there. People in Wisconsin care about the Badgers because it's the only D1 football program in the whole state. Whole state, just one D1 football program. Plenty that also have basketball. Marquette, UW Green Bay, UW Milwaukee. You see my point. But Badgers football means a lot up there. I'm sure it did at one point in time to Lance Leipold as well. They're going in a different direction. The reporting is kind of all over the place in terms of how things fell apart in Nebraska's interest in Lance Leipold. We heard reporting last night from, again, Michael Swain over at Fog.net, which I choose to believe that, hey, Lance Leipold said, I'm committed to staying at Kansas. We've also heard some other reports that have indicated, this includes Mitch Sherman, who has been on the program before, writer for The Athletic, covers Nebraska, who said Nebraska has chosen to go in a different direction. I'm going to be completely honest with you, though. I do not care, and I don't think anybody should care about, well, Nebraska was no longer interested. Or, well, Leipold said he would rather stay. It doesn't matter because Leipold is staying. That is the biggest deal for this KU team. You could not have asked for anything more if you're Kansas football, because the architect of the turnaround that has gotten KU to bowl eligibility in year 2 of his tenure, after really 13 seasons, but 12 especially, of just disastrous garbage football and a lack of commitment and a lack of success and a lack of belief from players, alumni, fans, hell, the coaching staff, the administration, it's been turned around. That guy is staying. That is a big deal. I don't necessarily think that KU is ever going to become a football powerhouse. I don't know when the next 10-win season for Kansas football is going to come. But can this program get to a point where it's winning anywhere from, even 6 to 8 games a year? Maybe a 9-win season? A trip to an Alamo Bowl, games like that. And certainly it is possible to win more than that at KU. I understand that. And I don't mean to be a defeatist fan and say, oh, well, all we can ever hope for again is the guaranteed rate bowl in Phoenix. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that if you can get to a point where you're competing for and going to bowl games every single season, you're bringing in legitimate Power 5, Big 12 talent like previous staffs weren't able to do with regularity and consistency, especially speaking of the pre-Miles staffs. That's a massive win for this program. And it's a credit, too, to the athletic director at KU, Travis Goff, who I think no matter how much credit he's gotten, he deserves more. Because there has been a level of seriousness that has been brought to the football program within the last 2 years. And I know the team was bad in 2021. They weren't any good. They only had the 2 wins. We were unironically celebrating close losses at the end of last season. Now, Lance Leipold has also brought that up this year. He brought it up this week even and said, hey, look, that was kind of the catalyst that brought us to where we are this season. But they're still growing. They're still developing. And obviously, and I bring this up a lot because I do think it is only fair to point out that I have a vested interest in KU being a good program. I went to KU. My family paid a lot of money to KU so I could go to the University of Kansas. I'm a gigantic KU fan as well as, somewhat objective media covering the team. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, you can even see the Wave the Wheat shirt I'm rocking right now from our good friends at Home Field Apparel. But this is I just think you can't even put into words. It is unspeakable how good of a thing this is for the Kansas program. Even if they don't become a powerhouse. Even if this doesn't become a 10 wins a year kind of program. Even if there are still some losses to better teams. A handful of losses in rivalry games. Still means a lot to have the guy stick around for the long term. And it shows a commitment, too, to recruits that, hey, this ain't changing. This isn't a 1 or 2 and done kind of thing for KU. This program is going to stay around. We're going to have stability. You're going to have stability. And we're going to win a lot more football games. It's extremely encouraging. It is extremely exciting. It is a great place to be if you're KU football. Now, I don't mean to make this actually 2 things to bring up. I had to look at my notes. There was one other thing I forgot. Mention that this includes a firm commitment from KU that, hey, we are going to invest in this program. We are going to make sure that we have a successful program. We're going to continue to improve our facilities, etc. I would imagine that also includes a commitment to beefing up KU's NIL collective, KU's connections to folks who are going to donate to NIL collectives, local businesses, major corporations, whatever it ends up being. Because we have heard reports that Leipold is very convinced that this is that's a big deal for this program. Lost my train of thought a little bit there, but that's my point. That, hey, this is a big deal. That's how you get really good recruits. That's how you get kids to stay on campus. We want commitment to that. Lance Leipold has said he wants commitment to that. It's a big deal. And I would imagine that is part of the agreement that Lance Leipold is signing up for. And we'll get the actual terms of the contract coming up here at some point. It might be today. I would assume it'll be at some point today. Maybe it'll be a little bit later on in the week after the holiday. Who knows? Maybe that'll be right around dinner time. We have the debate every year. When's your Thanksgiving dinner? Maybe whatever your dinner time is, maybe that is when they'll break the news tomorrow. I don't know specifically, but I do think it is exciting, and I would imagine that is a committed part of this. Money for the program, money for NIL. And whether that's right or wrong, and I know that's always a hotly contested thing, a hotly contested topic that, oh, this is wrong for college sports, it's great for college sports, whatever. It is the way of the world now. It's not going away. That's where I always stand. I don't love doing the, well, should they, shouldn't they, hypothetical. It is what it is. And if you don't like it, that's unfortunate, but it's not going away. So KU should commit to that. I think that's understandable. We do have a couple texts in on the Big O Tires text line. One from the 785 who says, Mark Mangino coached 8 years at KU. In those 8 years, they made 4 bowl games. And the 1 year in which they didn't make a bowl game, they also gave Bill Snyder his only loss to KU after 1992. I would take that. Yes. Make things competitive with K-State. We'll get to the Sunflower Showdown and Chris Kleiman in just a moment. Make things competitive. Make it a rivalry. Even if K-State continues to win a lot, that's a hell of a program in Manhattan. A hell of a program. I talk about that like we don't talk about K-State every day, like they're just some random team out there. We're going to talk plenty of K-State throughout the show today. In fact, coming up in just a few minutes, we'll talk about them on the basketball court. But yeah, make the rivalry competitive again for the first time in a long time. Get to a bowl game most years, even if it's a lower end bowl game. Get to the postseason. That's a big deal. I would happily take that as a fan. We've been to hell, okay? We've been all the way at the bottom. Absolutely, I would take pretty good year after year. We've also got a couple of K-State fans in here too, and I appreciate this insight. And I think these are viewpoints that are held by maybe not all, I don't know even about many, but plenty of K-State fans. And I appreciate the input here as well. One texture from the 785 says, I'm a K-State fan, and I'm so excited that Leipold is staying at KU. Finally, competitive football for both major colleges in Kansas. That's also how I feel. Like, from this job perspective, and I said it just yesterday in the show because I was saying about the rivalry game, the Sunflower Showdown. I don't hate K-State. I do not hate K-State. I applied to go to school at K-State. I toured the campus at K-State. Sometimes, fans get beef with each other, but I don't just like K-State. I love Colin Klein. Colin Klein is the whole reason I went to go check out K-State in the first place when I was a senior in high school in 2013. Like, that I've got no problem with it. But having both schools be good, having more football-focused attention on the state, maybe more of our great athletes in the high school ranks in state staying with our programs, that would be awesome. That would be truly awesome. We've also got another K-State fan who says, hey, good for KU and for the conference. That's from a K-State fan. Yeah, I'm not just saying I appreciate it because I'm a KU fan and I like hearing nice things, but I do think it's good. And I appreciate that perspective. We also have a text from the 402 that says, sorry, but Dan Marino will dominate KU on Saturday. Yeah, now this is a fair point. If you're KU, you're banking on this good news kind of pushing you forward into, yes, we've got plenty of momentum going into the Sunflower Showdown. We're going to ride this wave of momentum to snapping the losing streak against K-State. I'm picking K-State to win, to be completely honest with you. Kansas State has more to play for in the grand scheme of things. I think K-State is clearly playing better football right now. Will they cover? I don't know. 11.5 points is a lot in a rivalry game that might actually have some more competition to it. I'm going to pick K-State to win this game, just to be blunt. I do think Will Howard's probably going to have a good game because he's had nothing but good games since taking over a bigger role for Kansas State. I did want to touch on Chris Kleiman, and we'll talk more about the Sunflower Showdown later in the show with Tim Fitzgerald. There have been rumors, there have been whispers that, hey, Nebraska is also interested in Chris Kleiman. Like I said earlier in the week, duh, of course, every program in America should be interested in Chris Kleiman because he's a hell of a football coach, and K-State is having its best season yet during the Chris Kleiman era. Of course, every team in the country should say, oh yeah, I would love a Chris Kleiman. Absolutely. I don't think Chris Kleiman would leave. His relationship is too good with Gene Taylor, the AD. And at this point, honest to God, what can Nebraska offer other than national championships from 40 years ago, 50 years ago, or I guess in the 90s too? But what can they offer that K-State doesn't have right now? Commitment to NIL, K-State's got that. We've talked to the Wildcat Collective folks here on this very program. National prestige, Nebraska's in the mud, folks. K-State is not. K-State is on the rise. They might play for a Big 12 championship coming up in 2 weekends' time, a week and a half from now. I don't think most K-State fans are worried for what it's worth. I don't think many are. I'm just saying I certainly wouldn't be. It would be a true shocking stunner if there was even any whisper that Kleiman was interested in another job outside of K-State. He's a perfect fit for K-State. Lots of teams should be interested. I don't think it's going to mean anything right now, though, for the Wildcats. One other text to get you from the 316 before we have to get to a commercial break. Even just to generate more competition in the Big 12 in general by having Leipold at KU is a good thing. Yes, conferences that have doormats, not a good thing. That is not good to always have, oh, yeah, everybody gets to play 0-10, 0-11, 0-12 Kansas. Yeah, whatever. No, that's not good for the league. you're only as strong as your weakest members. You don't want to have the same doormat year after year. I would agree with that. Again, I'm biased. That's fine. You can call it out if you want. Fine by me. I'm just saying I think it's good for the Big 12, and it's obviously awesome for KU that Lance Leipold is sticking around long term. We're going to take our first break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit of college hoops news. KU already won today. K-State coming up tonight. And Mitch Holthus is going to join us later on this hour. It's all coming up here in this first hour on a shortened edition right before Thanksgiving of 580 Sports Talk. We are back on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dzwierzynski here with you. Dan is off today. He is already on his Thanksgiving break. So Dan will rejoin us coming up on Monday. The dynamic duo back again for a full show. We'll have a full 3 to 6 coming up on Monday. So how about that? Breaking news. Well, okay, breaking news is in air quotes here. But it is official now. I spoke it into existence, I guess. Just a matter of moments ago, KU officially announced the contract for Lance Leipold. He is sticking around. KU putting on Twitter, a bold investment, a bold vision, building together for sustained success. We're just getting started with Coach Leipold, who agreed to terms with KU Athletics. So it is officially official. Lance Leipold is sticking around long-term with KU. If we find out contract details today, we will let you know what those are before the end of the show. Did want to mention some college basketball stuff from earlier today. KU won over NC State in the opening round of the Battle for Atlantis down in the Bahamas. Grady Dick with a huge first half. 6 threes in the first half. He was unbelievable. Had a couple of buckets late, has a new career high. Granted, his career is only now 5 games old. Jalen Wilson, he did his thing. Juwan Harris is special, man. He is so special. He is so talented, and he doesn't have to score to really affect the game. I really thought he was phenomenal in that game today. So KU is going to play Wisconsin coming up tomorrow. Early tip-off for that game. I believe it's an 11 a.m. or a 10 a.m. tip-off tomorrow morning. So get your Thanksgiving started with a little KU basketball against Wisconsin. That's a big game for me personally. My best friend and my best man is a graduate. Well, was my best man this spring when I got married. Wisconsin graduate, huge Wisconsin fan. So that's going to be a big rivalry game for the two of us down in the Bahamas. Also, K-State in action tonight. The Wildcats taking on LSU in the championship match of the Cayman Islands Classic. How about that? Gritty win last night. I think gritty is a good word for it. K-State should have lost. All the reason in the world to lose to Nevada last night, but K-State fought back at the very end. Marquise Noel had what I would consider, I think most would consider, probably the best game of his career, certainly the best game of his K-State career so far. Ends up with the last-second bucket to send the game to overtime, and then K-State dominated in the extra period. So they now get to take on LSU tonight, 5:30 pregame start time, 6:30 tip-off time approximately from the Cayman Islands. You can hear that game right here on 580 WWW. That's why we are off early at 5:30. We'll preview that game coming up next hour with Tim Fitzgerald in our Wildcat Wrap-up. Right now, though, we've got to take another break. When we come back, we'll hear from the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, on 580 Sports Talk.
Do you know how to get this audio for? Yes, it sounds good to me on such a flat
Started with the red hot offense last week, so let's flip it around. Let's start with the defense this week. I think it's, at least from my opinion, my less informed opinion, Mitch, it was a little bit of a struggle to start the game against the Chargers, but man, this defense has just found a way to ratchet it up late in games and come up with clutch stops, clutch sacks. It was the Titans a few weeks ago. Then this past weekend, it was the sacks against the Chargers. What do you think has stood out about the way, Mitch, that especially this front seven, but really the whole defense has been able to step up and make clutch plays late in game? Is there something you can notice, or is that just sort of in the DNA of this group?
Honestly, I think there's a lesson to be learned here that can relate to, I don't know, Holton playing for the state championship, any of the Topeka teams or any of your area teams that play football. And honestly, I really attribute a lot of it to the way this team prepares for a season and what they do in March and April and May and June and during our training camp reports in St. Joseph. We have now seen 2 wins over the Chargers where it's been the same story. And truthfully, it's about conditioning, being ready to play, being mentally and physically tough and emotionally mature enough, especially the rookies, to be able to basically do the old cliche, keep chopping wood.
I wanted to ask, go ahead.
It's not something tricky. Like, wow, what huge adjustment did they make? They don't make tons of adjustments. They make some. They just have more juice at the end in a boxing match in the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th round than their opponent, and especially against these division opponents. You can't overlook it, and it seems simplistic, but I think that's the biggest factor.
I wanted to bring up Chris Jones in particular, and I mean, this could be a weekly segment alone. Let's just talk about how great Chris Jones has been, but he really has been maybe as good as he has ever been so far this season. And I wanted to ask specifically, Mitch, because I know that everybody points to the sacks and the fact that you have this great interior pass rusher that so few teams in the NFL have. I mean, in terms of this kind of production, it's Jones and it's Aaron Donald. That's about it. But I wanted to focus on the things he does that aren't just sacking the quarterback. They highlighted the one play on the TV broadcast where he blew up a pulling guard, and instead of a big open hole for Austin Eckler, he got bumped down for a 1-yard gain because his own guy was pushed into him. He made the stop Chris Jones did on what would have been a scramble for Justin Herbert with some open field in front of him. What are some of the things you notice from upstairs that he does that really change a game without necessarily recording a sack or a pressure?
Well, and you're referencing the quarterback draw, too, that they attempted at the beginning of their drive to try to go win or tie the game. That ends up being maybe the play of the game on the defensive side, because they're going to try to get a chunk play with Herbert running the ball. And Chris explained what his assignment was, and he executed it perfectly. This goes back to my initial point. Chris Jones got himself physically, mentally, and emotionally ready to play this season more than any time that he has in his career. And then himself to be this player back at the end of last season. Now, when you have the stamina and you've got the conditioning, you can make plays like he did, because I'm not sure you referenced the play where they ran a screen or a run over by Coach Reed. And honestly, Chris Jones ran about 25 to 30 yards and chased down a running back, Eckler, to make the play. It wasn't a linebacker. It was Chris Jones. I think it's ironic or poetic that Aaron Donald visits this week, because he's such a phenomenal player. But Chris Jones is having a better year than Aaron Donald. At least Pro Football Focus thinks so, because they have him rated the number one interior defensive lineman all year long, ahead of Aaron Donald. And it's arguable that Chris Jones is having a better year than Aaron Donald. And it's not just the sacks. It's the assignment, the run defense, the hustle, and the key play at the key time that's not a sack, or the pressure that leads to a sack for somebody else. It's all of that. It's all the stuff that Aaron Donald has done since he entered the league, and that's what Chris Jones is doing now, more than ever in his career.
We're chatting with the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk, one day earlier than normal because of the Thanksgiving holiday. Mitch, as always, brought to you by our good friends at both Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. While we're looking at the football that has already taken place, Mitch, before we look ahead to this game with the Rams coming up this weekend, I do have to bring up the quarterback, the all-world face of the franchise, Mr. Patrick Mahomes. Where do you think his current stretch over this 4-game winning streak for the Chiefs, where I think, at least personally, he has cemented himself as the far and away odds-on favorite to win this year's Most Valuable Player award, how do you think this most recent stretch for Mahomes stacks up with some of the other truly great stretches of play he's had in his career?
I think it's the best stretch of his career, even though statistically there may be more numbers. But hear me out on this, because of what happened this offseason, what the external perception was, the fact that he is now in the second lap of his career, so to speak, with the salary cap, and he's not on a rookie contract anymore, how he has adjusted his game, and what he's doing is winning. The fact that he's 13-7, trailing at halftime, and no other quarterback and since the merger has a 500 record is phenomenal. Well, that goes into this year in this stretch. If he wins this week, he'll have he'll be the winningest quarterback in NFL history in his first 75 games, not just compiling stats. And the reason I tell you that in answer to your question is that what he has done this year doesn't need the big stats. It's not always necessarily the glitzy stats, although he's getting stats, but he's winning games in different ways. Look at the Tennessee Titan game. I'm super proud of him. I say this every week with you, but you asked me the question. I think it's the best stretch of his career because what he's doing and how he's doing it.
And to that point, I mean, it's the fact that he has overcome the narrative, so to speak. And Dan and I have talked about that so much on the show and why we've been hyping up his MVP candidacy. I mean, he's obviously doing so much, and the stats are great, and the wins are obviously the most important thing. But I think, to me, Mitch, the thing that has really stood out is the fact that there was all this talk from the outside, especially, about how, oh man, either this offense is probably going to struggle without Tyreek Hill, or alternately, well, it's going to be completely different and they're not going to be nearly as good. I think that was foolish from the very beginning, but I do think there is at least something special when you're kind of in the middle of it all and the Chiefs are so close to you to think that, wow, there was all this narrative, all this talk, and he is still going out there and performing and being, he's playing as well as ever. I think, to me, that's the most special part of this whole run.
No question. and the fact that he is doing it differently. He's not just running around crazy, throwing no-look passes. He's doing it in the pocket, and he's executing, still getting big plays and overcoming obstacles. There have been 232. I'm going to give you the best Patrick Mahomes stat. Might be the stat of our year so far, nugget-wise. This isn't, but it gets you warmed up for it. And that there have been 232 situations where there have been 3rd and 17 in the National Football League. Patrick Mahomes has converted 3 of them. No other team has converted more than 1. And 4 of those ones, so to speak, have been by penalty, illegal contact, pass interference. He has had none of those. He has earned every one of them. Now, you want the craziest stat of the year so far? And I know a lot of people are driving, headed to their loved ones for Thanksgiving. This segment is one of the most listened to of the year because of that dynamic. So it's probably good that we pop this one out here tonight.
That's right.
Are you ready for maybe the best nugget? Maybe the best I've ever given you.
Oh man, that's a high standard to set, Mitch.
Okay. Right now, Patrick Mahomes, his completion percentage is 66.3%. At the end of the 2021 season, Patrick Mahomes' completion percentage was 66.3. At the end of 2020, his completion percentage was 66.3. To the decimal, to the 10th decimal, it is the exact total 66.3 for 3 consecutive years. And this is something like closing in on 2,000 attempts. So I don't know if any actuaries are out there. And then the year before that was 65.9, and the year before that was 66.0. Matt McMullen and I were working on this morning, and he goes, he's a robot. He's a robot.
That is
How about 3 straight years where the completion percentage is the same, taking it to 1 decimal point?
That is incredible. That is, I don't even know how you could put odds on the likelihood of that. I've got a good friend who works in sports statistics. Maybe he could run something for me for that. I cannot believe that has been that accurate over and over and over again.
Ask him. I'm curious. Ask your dude. Come back next week with it. Go. He has had exactly 66.3% for 3 consecutive years. What's that probability?
All right, I will text him right after we're done here at the top of the hour, and I will let him know. We're talking to Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's joining us here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union. I do want to look ahead here, Mitch, to the game on Sunday against the Rams. If you're watching on TV, almost the entire country gets it. And, of course, listen to the sports voice of Kansas to hear Mitch and the crew on the call as well. The Rams are struggling this year. I think that's entirely fair to say. A little bit of the Super Bowl hangover possibly that some teams do experience, but they've still obviously got a ton of talent on their defense, a longtime defensive coordinator in Raheem Morris. What are some of the things the Rams do that in theory could give the Chiefs some problems?
Well, former K-State defensive coordinator Raheem Morris.
That's right.
Who had 1 year there with Ron Prince in 2006. Okay, let's just take where the Rams are historically. If the Rams lose this game, they will be 3-8. It will be the worst start to a season following a Super Bowl championship in NFL history in a non-strike year. 1987, it was a 3-8 start by, I'm trying to think who it was. Might have been the Giants, whoever won it in 86. But anyway, they started 3-8, but it was a strike year, scabs and weird. Nobody's done this. The Broncos in 99 were 3-7 when John Elway retired after getting the back-to-back Super Bowl championships, but they won their 11th game to be 4-7. If the Rams lose this game, they'll be 3-8. Historic. Okay. How do the Rams win this game? You just laid it out defensively. They are not 3-7 because of their defense. They're 4th in red zone defense. They are 2nd in the league in disallowing big 10-plus runs only to San Francisco. They're 3rd in the league in disallowing 20-plus passing plays or 20-plus plays overall. That does not equate to a 3-7 team. You mentioned Raheem Morris. Scheme. 2, mainly players. Aaron Donald, we talked about him earlier. Leonard Floyd. Not so much Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner's not exactly hit the same off-season conditioning work that Chris Jones did. But Jalen Ramsey, big-time challenge for the Chiefs. Remember, he tried to liquefy Tyreek Hill's collarbone in 2019 in that opening game when Ramsey was a Jaguar. Those defenders are elite defenders who can take a day and destroy it for you. That's how the Rams win the game. Defensively, they are still at a level that looks like a defending Super Bowl champion. Offensively, they look like a team that was trying to a preseason squad, guys trying to make the team. And I don't mean that casting aspersions. It's just what it is. Offensively, they're just a disaster. A lot of it is injuries, right? Matthew Stafford in concussion protocol, Cooper Kupp, the nasty ankle injury. If they start a certain group on the combination on the offensive line, it will be their 11th different offensive line combo in 11 weeks. That would be an NFL record.
And even if they do, Mitch, come out with any semblance of consistency on that offensive line, which, I mean, given those numbers is far from a guarantee, I think it is fair to say that if Matt Stafford can't end up going, and I know he's back in the concussion protocol, and I mean, frankly, I just kind of feel bad for the guy having to go through that 2 weeks in a row. But whether it's John Wolford who gets to start or the former Virginia Cavalier Bryce Perkins, I mean, that, at least from my perspective, puts the Rams behind the 8 ball from the very jump.
Yeah, I honestly, Perkins concerns me more than Wolford. Not saying that. I mean, Wolford, remember, had the big win against Arizona.
Yeah.
The end of 21, they actually got the Rams in the playoffs. And the former Wake Forest Demon Deacon. But if you look at what Perkins did, especially at the end of his career in UVA, he ended their streak of 15 straight losses to Virginia Tech with a phenomenal day. He's kind of a Malik Willis. He might be just as good as Malik Willis. Maybe I'm wrong, but he's more accurate, I think, at this point as a passer. He's been in the Rams system, Perkins has, for 2 years, and his RPO game is dangerous. So if you're going to pull off an upset with the Rams defense, offensively, you have to just not be awful. And Perkins, to me, would give them a chance of not being awful. Now, what's weird is they cut Henderson, was it yesterday? And then they cut Hollins on they cut 2 starters. I don't know. They're just weird when you look at them. Yeah, they've had injuries, but this just doesn't feel like a team that, wow, did you guys win that Super Bowl championship? Seems like 5 years ago when you look at this team right now, this Rams team.
It'll be Chiefs versus Rams coming up on Sunday. Of course, you can listen right here to 580 WIBW, the sports voice of Kansas, to hear Mitch Holthus and crew on the call. And Mitch joining us here on 580 Sports Talk as a courtesy of both Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, we appreciate you joining us a day early because of the holiday. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully, after a 5th straight Chiefs win.
Same to you, Brendan. Now, I want your friend to figure out that probability. Text it to me. Give me your Twitter handle. We're going to do it while we still have Twitter, and his Twitter handle, because I'm going to put it on Twitter. And then I can let everybody know what the infinitesimal probabilities are that Patrick Mahomes would have exactly 66.3% completion percentage for 3 consecutive years.
Absolutely will. I will do that right away. Thank you so much, Mitch.
All right, Brendan. Thank you.
That is the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. That my best friend, my best man at my wedding. He works, I've mentioned on the show about 1 billion times, works for Stats Perform. I'll have to send that to him, see if he can get his math brain on that one as quickly as possible. I'll have to let Mitch know what the odds are. That is an absurd stat. That's the Chris Davis stat for Major League Baseball, where he hit whatever it was, the exact same number of home runs 5 years, or the exact same number of his batting average, I believe it was. I think it was 247. He hit 4 or 5 years in a row. It was unbelievable. Apparently, Patrick Mahomes is on that same kind of plan. Right now, we've got to take a timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got the national and local news coming up here at the top of the hour. When we come back, we will look ahead to the rest of the football weekend and a beautiful, glorious Thanksgiving Thursday around the NFL and college football. That's all coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk.
Variety is the spice of life, and the menu at the T-Box is constantly growing and adding new delicious items for your taste buds to love. The T-Box, located in downtown Topeka on 9th and Kansas, has a full mouth-watering menu served daily, with lunch specials that hit the spot without draining your wallet. And while you're there, enjoy craft beer, wine, and cocktails while you use the industry-leading technology to improve your game on the golf course where it's always perfect weather. The T-Box, great food and good times. Learn more at thetboxgroup.com.
Patriotism is a spiritual concept, and it touches
go. 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dzwierzynski here with you. Dan Lucero is off today for the Thanksgiving holiday. We are both off coming up tomorrow for, you guessed it, Thanksgiving. And we're off Friday as well, so enjoy your Thanksgiving. If you're into the whole Black Friday thing, enjoy that as well. We'll be back with you coming up on Monday for a full show. 3 until 6, plenty to get to from the football long weekend, the holiday weekend as well. Handful of housekeeping things to send your way here as we start off this 4 o'clock hour. By the way, during this 4 o'clock hour, we are going to get to a Thanksgiving football weekend preview. So a little college football, plenty of NFL football. It's all coming your way here in just a moment. Fulton is going to stop by for an edition of What Is Wrong With You, since we've got no Dan. Fulton was around in the building since he obviously had mic'd up earlier today. So Fulton's going to swing by, and we'll have today's What Is Wrong With You coming up in just a little bit. And Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com is going to stop by, too, at the bottom of the hour for this week's edition of the Wildcat Wrap-up, talking all things at K-State athletics. Basketball team in good shape. They'll play for the Cayman Islands Classic Championship tonight against LSU. Cats are, I believe, a half a point favorite, or they're a half a point underdog. I'll have to check on that when we get a moment. We'll, of course, talk about the Sunflower Showdown as well. Do want to get you some housekeeping notes. By the way, some broadcast notes. Number one, it was pointed out to us that we had some audio issues with the YouTube stream. Those have been fixed. We are all good to go. The little inside baseball. So we're still getting the YouTube stream up and running and regularly on the air and everything. We're in different studios. Dan and I are on opposite sides of the glass. Dan's usually on the control board. I'm in the main studio. Well, Dan's not here, so I'm on the control board today. We had some different audio settings, kind of janky on the computer. They were all out of whack. They have since been fixed. So that's been taken care of, and the audio is now nice and crisp on the YouTube stream. Things are still going just fine on the Sports Voice of Kansas. So if you had tuned away from the YouTube live stream during the first hour, head back over and you'll be able to watch, and you'll actually be able to hear me along with just being able to see me. Programming notes as well. Tonight, we're done early with 580 Sports Talk. We are off the air at 5:30 today for pregame coverage of K-State basketball and that matchup with LSU down in the Cayman Islands. Pregame at 5:30, tip-off at approximately 6:30. Right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. 6 o'clock over on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. I will be on the call of Washburn women's basketball against Haskell. This game was originally scheduled for the Washburn women against Central Christian College. However, a scheduling snafu led to that game being switched up, and now the Ichabods will take on Haskell tonight. We'll talk about that scheduling change coming up in headlines next hour. But pregame at 5:45, tip-off at 6 o'clock at Lee Arena. I will be on the call of that one. So as soon as we are done with 580 Sports Talk, I am zipping right out of here and heading over to Washburn University. Coming up on Saturday, here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 1 o'clock kickoff, 12:30 pregame. We have state championship Saturday coverage for you. Again, 1 o'clock kickoff. Myself and Greg Akagi will be on the call from Lewis Field in beautiful Hayes, America, where the St. Mary's Bears will take on the Inman Teutons. 1A state championship game coming up Saturday, 12:30 pregame, 1 o'clock kickoff right here on 580 WIBW. What a run for the St. Mary's Bears here late in the season. They had 2 early losses this year to teams in higher classes. They have been on a roll ever since then, however, so we'll be on the call of that one coming up on Saturday. Then Saturday night, K-State versus KU, obviously the K-State broadcast on the Wildcat Sports Radio Network right here on 580 WIBW. Pregame begins at 5 o'clock, kickoff at 7 between K-State and KU. Then on Sunday, as usual, Chiefs football versus the Rams. We just talked all about that matchup with Mitch Holthus at the end of last hour. That matchup is coming up on Sunday afternoon right here on 580 WIBW. Big news breaking late in the 3 o'clock hour, by the way. Matthew Stafford is not indeed going to play in this game. He is not going to play for the Rams. He's in the concussion protocol. He is out for this weekend. That has already been determined. Bryce Perkins likely in line to get the start for the Rams, as we talked about with Mitch Holthus. That sucks for the Rams, and if the Chiefs don't win this game by multiple touchdowns, it's going to be a mistake. So we'll get to that game coming up here in just a second. But some housekeeping notes for you. A lot of sports coverage coming all week long right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, and the Alpha Media Topeka family of stations. Washburn basketball also in action coming up on Saturday. The Washburn men are in action back home at Lee Arena coming up on Saturday. That'll be on Classic Country 106.9. All right, let's get to the analysis. Let's get to the talk. Let's get to the football. We'll start with the NFL slate. Let's start with the Chiefs. We'll start with them. We're not going to get a full prediction. We won't get you full keys to the game. It's only Wednesday. A lot of things can change between now and Friday. Obviously, we're still more than half a week away from the actual kickoff between the Chiefs and the Rams. This one's pretty simple for me, though. Just go out. Defensively, the Chiefs should be able to dominate this game. Should be able to absolutely, utterly dominate this game. And the reason why is because the Rams' offense is garbage. It's trash. Even with Matt Stafford, it's been bad this year. Their offensive line, all out of sorts. You had that stat from Mitch. If they mix up anything on the offensive line this week, it'll be their 11th different combination of offensive linemen in the starting lineup this year. That's not a recipe for success. Not one bit. This looks like the pre-Andrew Whitworth Rams, between their Super Bowl 53 appearance, which should have been the Chiefs against the Rams, could have been a Chiefs Super Bowl win. Instead, they lost to the Patriots. But it's like between that Rams team and the Rams that went to and won the Super Bowl this past year, when the offensive line was just terrible. When they've got a great offensive line, they can win a Super Bowl every year. If they don't have the offensive line, they don't have a prayer. Stafford's been bad. They're going to now be on a third-string quarterback. They don't have their all-world wide receiver in Cooper Kupp. It's going to be ugly for the Rams offense. Now, that being said, and we heard this from Mitch as well, that Rams defense still salty. It's still got Aaron Donald. He's heard all the talk this week. He is going to be amped up for this game. That's going to be challenging for the Chiefs offensive line. They do have talent on the back end. Now, the safety play for the Rams, not great. We've seen better in NFL history. We've seen better safety play. Taylor Rapp, who has gotten a lot of starting time, a lot of playing time for the Rams, he is awful. If he's ever on the field, that is who Patrick Mahomes should be throwing the ball toward pretty much every single time, because he's been awful. They do still have Jalen Ramsey. He's prone to getting burned from time to time. I mean, there's nobody on this Chiefs team who you say, oh, yeah, they're just uncoverable. But, no matter who's healthy, no matter who is ready to go, whatever, Chiefs should be able to dominate this game defensively. Offensively, I think they're going to score more than enough to get this job done. I would imagine, we're looking at 31-13. That's the score I'll give you. This Rams offense is awful, man. They are the absolute dregs. They're hard to watch. They're not very talented. They're super banged up. So give me the Chiefs by a lot. I think the defense is going to play really well. I think the offense will play well enough too. Rams, it's weird for a Super Bowl champion to be this bad. We've heard of the Super Bowl hangover. This team stinks. They're big, fat trash. They're not fun to watch. I'm not going to say they're not well coached. They're gross. They're no fun to watch on TV, and the whole country is going to see this game on TV coming up on Sunday. So give me the Chiefs. Give me the Chiefs by a lot. I don't really care what the spread is. Chiefs are going to cover it. Give me the Chiefs, full stop. The NFL action the rest of the weekend. The maps have come out for the broadcast windows. So in terms of our games on Sunday this week, CBS early game, we will be getting the Bengals and the Titans. That's a good game. That's a really good matchup. Excited to watch that one. That's the early game on CBS. The early game on Fox that we'll be getting is the Bears and the Jets. The Bears and the Jets. That's our, with a new quarterback, by the way. Zach Wilson's been benched. It'll be Mike White getting the start for the Jets in that game. It's not a good early Fox window, I'm going to be honest with you. Tampa at Cleveland, Bears at Jets, Falcons at Commanders. That's probably your best game. And then Broncos, Panthers. Mercy me. That's hideous. That is a hideous early slate. But then your afternoon slate, most of the country is going to get Rams, Chiefs, and a certain couple pockets are going to get Saints, 49ers. Your Thursday games, your Thanksgiving Day games this year, Bills, Lions is the early kick, 11:30 kickoff from Detroit. Buffalo playing in Detroit for a second week in a row. Obviously, they had to play there this past week because their game got moved due to the snowstorm in Western New York. I mean, the Bills should win this game. Detroit's defense has been a lot better since they made a personnel change, changing their defensive backs coach. They fired Aubrey Pleasant. The name of their new defensive backs coach is escaping me at the moment, but the Bills are still a better team here. I think the Bills sort of figured things out against the Browns in the second half of their game this past week. I think the Bills should be able to come away with a win in that one. Your Thanksgiving Day late game, Giants, Cowboys. This feels like the snowball game for the Giants. They started the year so well. 7-2 start to the season. They looked so bad against the Lions this week. They couldn't get anything going offensively. Their defense was a sieve throughout that game. They need a win. Otherwise, it's going to feel like the snowball coming down the mountain in the avalanche. Like, it's only going to get worse and worse and really get rough on them. I would go with the Cowboys to pick for a pick in this game. I think the Cowboys are the better team. I think they're coming off of that big win against Minnesota. Often you'd say, well, maybe this is the letdown spot then. I don't really think this is a letdown spot. They had their letdown the week before when they lost to a bad Green Bay team. That was the Cowboys' letdown. So they're riding high now, coming off that big momentum bounce back win over the Vikings. Give me the Cowboys over the Giants, and that's going to put the Giants in a real bind because their schedule the rest of the way, it's not good. They're going to be in a real bad spot. We do have a texter from the 785 who says, I can think of 31 other teams I would rather watch than the Lions. Yeah, that's generally fair. They're better this year than in most years. They're still not good. I still don't think they're especially well coached. I don't think Dan Campbell's the guy, but yeah, I get it. I do understand. Mitch pointed it out, though. I mean, they've been playing on Thanksgiving forever. I like tradition. I like things like that. I like that Detroit and Dallas always play on Thanksgiving Day, Detroit especially, since that goes back to the early to mid 1930s. The other game, Thanksgiving night, this has potential to be awful. I'm just being honest with you. This has potential to be awful. Patriots at Vikings. The Vikings, who are 8-2, but somehow have a negative point differential, versus the Patriots, who won a game 10-3 this past weekend, and the only touchdown scored in the game was on a punt return. Ugh. That's gross, man. That is grody. It is gnarly. It might be awful. Minnesota's pass rush is going to kill Mac Jones in this game, I think. I would take the Vikings to win. I would take chalk here. New England's defense has been excellent in recent weeks. It really has been. That's obviously boosted up by playing the Jets and their terrible offense. But the Patriots defense has been really good of late. I'll take Minnesota. That game's going to be awful. By the way, apparently Chris Collinsworth isn't doing that game for TV, at least according to 506sports.com. It's actually going to be Mike Tirico, Jason Garrett, and Tony Dungy. Why? Why? You're NBC, man. This is a storied sports department. You should have better options as your backup color commentator than Jason Garrett and Tony Dungy. Holy smokes. Keep that game on mute. Enjoy time with the family. You know, for some people, you eat a little bit later. I'm more of a Thanksgiving dinner means dinner time guy. That's how I was raised. That's how Abby and I have done our Thanksgiving dinner the last couple of years. So I'll probably be eating my normal dinner around that time. Maybe I'll be going back for the second course around the time the Thanksgiving night game kicks off. Mercy me. That is bad. Keep that game on mute. Maybe it's already your second meal. That's how Jake's always done it. We've had that debate here on the Sports on 580 crew for so long. His family always eats Thanksgiving dinner super early. Mine eats it later. Maybe you're like him. Yours is more at lunchtime. Then you go back and you have a second meal with all the leftovers later on. Whatever you end up doing, have that game on mute and maybe only pay passing attention to it. As for college football this week, we've got the one college game on Thanksgiving Day. It's the Egg Bowl. That's how it should be. I love having the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving Day. It's a long-standing tradition. There used to be Texas A&M. That game is obviously, dead now for the time being anyway. The Egg Bowl is weird. There's potential for bad weather, I believe I saw. That's going to be gross. So maybe that's the move. If you've got multiple TVs, I'll see if I can maybe make a trade-off and get the multiple TV going, the setup going for Thursday. Usually I get that Saturday, Sunday. Preference is not to have that on the other days of the week. Maybe we'll get the go-ahead from my wife to get the second TV up so we can do the Egg Bowl along with the NFL on Thursday night. That should be a fun game. Ole Miss is favored by 2.5 at home. That game is always a blast. Sunflower Showdown. K-State, last I saw, was favored by 11.5 points. I'm taking K-State in this one. KU's got the momentum from the Lance Leipold contract. That's obviously a big deal. I'm going to lean with K-State in this one, though. I think the Cats are just playing too well right now. The offense is humming at a level we have not seen from K-State's offense in quite some time. It's been looking so good. It's so much more explosive on a play-to-play basis when Will Howard's out there. The defense has been excellent. KU is going to struggle defensively. Even if KU can get back to an offensive rhythm that was really lacking against Texas. K-State struggled defensively, at least to a degree, against West Virginia, even though I still think that was just one of those games where, hey, sometimes chaos happens. KU might be able to score a little bit. I don't know what they're going to do defensively, though, with how well Will Howard's been throwing the ball. Deuce Vaughn is obviously an All-American caliber player and All-American candidate. You've got Cade Warner, who's playing well. Malik Knowles is playing well. I don't know who is going to check Ben Sinnott. So I think it's going to be more competitive than it has been in recent years, but I still do think K-State wins, and K-State probably covers as well, even though there's plenty of points in the spread in that one. It's coming up on Saturday. A lot of enjoyment for the game, a lot of excitement for the game. I sounded like Les Miles there. I kind of lost what E word I wanted to use. There's a lot of excitement for the game. I'm happy for everyone who gets to enjoy this one, and I'm happy that at least there's a reason to have excitement for the game this year, at least from the KU end. With that, we are going to take a timeout. When we come back, Fulton joins us for a round of What is Wrong with You here on 580 Sports Talk.
What the hell?
It is time for What Is Wrong With You on this Wednesday afternoon edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dzwierzynski here with you as we find our weekly winner. It's a shortened week of What Is Wrong With You because it's a shortened week of 580 Sports Talk shows with Thanksgiving coming up tomorrow and the whole crew is off on Friday as well. No Dan today. He and his wife took off for their Thanksgiving plans day early. So filling in along with me for today's What Is Wrong With You, the host of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton, the one and only Fulton Caster. Fulton, thank you for pulling a little double duty today. I know you were flying solo on Mic'd Up, so thank you for stopping by for a little extra What Is Wrong With You heading into the weekend.
Always happy to jump for What Is Wrong With You. One of the biggest things I miss from no longer being part of 580 Sports Talk is the weekly What Is Wrong. They're fantastic.
So we've got two new stories going head-to-head today. Our current winner for the week is the worst fiance of all time. The gentleman who, well, he didn't like the way his soon-to-be wife was spending money. Didn't think it made much sense to spend several $1,000s on a wedding dress. Something she will only wear once. It is a rare occasion, and so he returned it.
Oh, no.
He went into her closet, and he took it back to the store. Got their money back.
I assume the wedding is now on.
I would have to imagine.
It has to be.
I know, and I said this yesterday, and I got confirmation about this from my wife. Had I done this, I would not be married right now.
Understandably so.
Yeah.
Understandably so. I would not have blamed her. Had you done this, you also would no longer.
So the worst fiance ever is our current reigning winner. Fulton, I'll have you go first today. As the guest, you can go first here.
Brendan, we're going to go to Fresno, California for a very short, sweet, and simple, and confusing What Is Wrong With You today.
Please tell me this does not involve Jake Hainer.
It does not involve Jake Hainer.
Okay, thank God.
It is a suspect who robbed a bank of $200, which is a small thing to try and get away from.
Okay.
The problem is he was caught very easily. And here's why, Brendan. He needs a walker to get around. A man using a walker went to a downtown Fresno bank yesterday afternoon and demanded money before being arrested a short time later, according to police. The 68-year-old walked into the Wells Fargo on Fresno Street and Van Ness Avenue at about 10:30 in the morning. While using a walker, he approached the teller with a note demanding money. The teller gave him $200 and, of course, unsurprisingly included a tracker with the cash. Officers were then in the area and quickly found him as he went left on, funny enough, Fulton Street in Fresno, California.
Wow, how fitting.
The suspect was arrested without incident, police said, and the money was recovered.
Okay.
I don't know why he decided to steal this money. I don't know what's going on here. You're not getting away if you have mobility issues.
So I have a bank robbing story today as well. Earlier in the week, our winner on Monday was also a bank robbing story. A gentleman who had a curse word tattooed on his throat. His demand note was written on the back of his own birth certificate, and he claimed he did the whole thing to prove a point to his lover. We were never able to find out what exactly that point was.
Yeah.
I feel like these two stories, that one and the one you just delivered, kind of are like have a kinship together. Like, there's no way this is going to work. It is impossible for this to work out.
Not a single chance for you to say, I want $200 and now let me shamble away down the street.
That's
Truly.
tremendous.
Truly. What are you doing?
That is phenomenal. My story today, again, it is a bank robbing story. We've got another older gentleman, not old necessarily, but older, 59-year-old William Sequeira of Fall River, Massachusetts. This is a man who's got a history of attempted bank robbery. Well, he's been charged in connection with another attempted bank robbery at a TD Bank in Boston. Sequeira was charged with one count of bank robbery and faces a sentence of up to 20 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of $250,000. He will appear in a federal court in Boston at a later date, according to the U.S. attorney. According to the charging documents, Sequeira entered the TD branch on Union Street in Boston on September 30th, allegedly approached a teller and said, "Give me all the hundreds in the drawer, and then give me all the money before I blow your brains out." He fled on foot. In October, he was then caught in the act at a Citizens Bank branch on Boylston Street in Boston. He allegedly approached the teller, said, "Give me hundreds," and then threatened to shoot the teller if they did not move fast enough. He was taken into custody moments later. That is the writing of Boston.com. Makes me think there may have already been a cop there, or they just called him and, hey, they're right down the street. We'll walk in and go stop this bank robbery. Sequeira appeared on the local legal television show Caught in Providence 2 years ago, which sounds amazing. On that show, he claims that Ben Affleck's character in the movie The Town is based on him, and then tells the judge that he has robbed more than 100 banks. So This is another great story. This often happens with our bank robbing stories. This is a guy who is addicted to the grind. This man loves robbing banks.
Just absolutely. You don't always need to rob banks.
Don't need to do it.
You don't need to keep doing this. And then to say Ben Affleck placed his character in the town off of you is just a wild take.
To be fair, bank robbery, it involves Ben Affleck, so obviously it involves Boston. I mean, I can understand the logic behind it.
I get the connections to it. I understand where they're going with it.
But yeah, he got caught in the act.
Again,
claims that he's robbed over 100 banks. This man just loves robbing banks. And now he might go to jail for 20 years. He's already almost 60. Like, bro, come on. You live out your later years enjoying life, maybe work a little bit, maybe take some vacations. No, he's going to go take a vacation to Club Fed.
Also, what would you admit to a judge you've robbed over 100?
I'm not sure. That doesn't.
None of this makes sense.
No, it really doesn't. Who do you have for today?
Man, both of these are close, and both of these are idiots. I kind of have to go with mine for the guy getting $200 and then no exit strategy. None.
It almost makes me wonder if he intended to get caught.
I do wonder that as well, which makes me also hesitant to give him the win because there's a lot of issues in clarity there. Because maybe he did want to get caught. I don't know.
Yeah, man, I'm going to vote with that one as well, though. I mean, that is the funnier story of these two bank robbing idiots. Man, I just there's no way to get away from that unless the thought is I'm old. Maybe they'll take their time and I can get away. Maybe they're not going to pursue me.
Maybe he didn't think they would put tracker in the money, so it's just a simple idea of I could just easily walk away. No one's going to think the old man did anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
I am baffled. Get a getaway car. It's so commonplace. Get a getaway car.
Get the rascal.
Yes,
the motorized scooter. That would be more useful than
shambling down the street.
Yeah, just shuffling away. I do not think though that beats the worst fiance ever.
No, that man. I hope that the marriage is off. If it's not, I question a lot of things. Love can be blind for a lot of things. It cannot be blind for your fiance returning your wedding.
For the record, and I think this is another example of why this wasn't going to work out anyway, there is an additional part at the end of the story that after they had a confrontation when the soon-to-be bride found out that her wedding dress had been sold back to the store, returned, they had a fight, and the gentleman then called his mom and had his mom yell at the woman on the phone.
Oh, the red flags are off the charts.
Yeah, I feel
there's about 80.
If you got to this point, there were probably enough red flags that maybe you shouldn't have gotten to this point. That's, like you said, love to make people do crazy things. I, having been through this in not this scenario, but been through proposing, being with someone for a long time, getting married, all of that within the last year, I feel like you would have known. You should know by this point if you are with someone who would be willing to not tell you that they were returning your wedding dress. I feel like you should probably be prepared for that. That will remain our weekly winner, and it is officially our weekly champion here on What Is Wrong With You. Fulton, thank you for the time.
Always happy to be here.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, my man.
We're going to take another time out here on 580 Sports Talk, and when we come back, we've got our pre-Thanksgiving Wildcat Wrap-up with Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com right here on 580 Sports Talk. Protect with you. We are waiting to get in touch with Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com for our Azura Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-up as we talk all things Kansas State athletics. Fitz, of course, you can check out on Twitter at Life of Fitz. And, of course, go check out GoPowerCat.com for all the best content of all things K-State athletics, basketball, football, all the like. Some interesting notes on K-State football recruiting, by the way, over on the VIP board over at GoPowerCat.com. 24/7 Sports, I believe they've got a deal going on right now for a free day till the end of the day for VIP. It might be through the end of the weekend. I'm actually not sure. So once we eventually get on the phone with Fitz, we will be able to let you know what that deal is and what other stuff K-State is, or GoPowerCat.com is covering in regard to K-State athletics this week. Of course, the Sunflower Showdown is coming up on Saturday. It's a big matchup. We've talked so much about KU today, and I think rightfully so with the Lance Leipold news. That is obviously a big deal. But I think it is also important to note that there's kind of a lot riding on this game for K-State. Now, they can, in theory, still get to the Big 12 championship game. If they lose, they can get a little help as well. But I do think the easy thing to do is just beat your rival who you've beaten a ton in recent years and be able to take care of business, knock them out, and go on and take care of business and advance on to the Big 12 championship game on your own. And like I said earlier, I do think K-State is going to get this done. I do think K-State is going to end up with the victory this week. I don't really have any reason to think they're not going to win just based on what we've seen recently. And I don't mean to be, well, I'm certainly not a KU hater. Again, I'm rocking KU gear in the studio today. And if you know anything about me one bit, and if you're listening to this show, I assume you do, I'm not exactly like a KU hater, okay, right? So I do think, though, it's just realistic after KU struggled so much with Texas, and I think K-State, despite, the result against Texas, is a better team than Texas. I think they match up really well against this K-State or this KU team. I just think it's going to be difficult for KU to come away with a victory this week, given everything that's going on. K-State's playing really damn well right now. I mean, that's essentially what this comes down to. Their quarterback is playing as well as any quarterback in the country. Will Howard is. Tyler Dreiling on Twitter, who's been involved with K-State media before, and certainly if you're on K-State Twitter, you know all about Tyler Dreiling. But he had a post the other day about how well all the quarterbacks for the two schools are playing. That's Jalen Daniels and Jason Bean for KU. That's Will Howard and Adrian Martinez for K-State, and just how well they've all been playing. Howard, you could argue, has been the best of the whole group. In fact, there might not even really be all that much of an argument just with how well he has played specifically in the games he started, the games he's had to come in relief for Adrian Martinez due to injury or what have you. I mean, he's been sensational. He has been absolutely tremendous for the balance of this season. So, look, you give a lot of credit to KU for the season they have put together. You give credit to K-State for the year they have put together and the fact that they are in a position now to still keep playing for even more. Lance Leipold actually spoke about that on Monday. I listened to his press conference just last night, just for some talking points with a new contract. And look, K-State has been sensational. They deserve a lot of respect for getting to a place now where they still have so much to play for. I think they can beat TCU in a rematch, to be completely honest with you. You give a whole week of preparation to Will Howard. The offense knows what to expect. They know exactly what they're getting out of TCU. I don't know if they'll be favored. Well, they certainly won't be favored, but I think K-State is going to have a great chance to beat TCU in a rematch. We will see for sure, but I do think in the end, we're going to end up with K-State getting to the Big 12 championship game. I think they can beat TCU. I don't know that they will. I think they will beat KU this weekend, though, as much as that does pain me to say. We're going to take a quick time out here on 580 Sports Talk. We're going to try to get back in touch with Fitz. I know I'm just kind of rambling on about this matchup as we try to get the Wildcat Wrap-up all set up. So we are going to take a quick time out. We'll come back on the other side of this break, and we'll see if we can get in touch with Tim Fitzgerald. That's coming up here in just a moment on 580 Sports Talk. If we're able to get him back on the line here in the next 10 minutes or so, though, we will get to an abbreviated edition of our Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-up. So we'll see if we can get Fitz on the line here in the next few. It's Thanksgiving. Things are going on. No hard feelings, no sweat. We do want to get to this real quick. We'll get back to the Sunflower Showdown and K-State sports here in just a moment. We are going to do a Wildcat Wrap-up one way or another. If I have to do it myself, we'll make sure we do a Wildcat Wrap-up today. I do want to get to this because we are talking Thanksgiving. If you want to let us know, by the way, what you are making for Thanksgiving, you are more than welcome to. We do have one texter who sent in their menu, and we will have to get to that momentarily because we are going to get Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com indeed on the line here. We'll see if Fitz can hear me. Fitz, are you able to hear me on the other end of the line?
I got distracted by smoking a turkey. I'm so sorry.
Fitz, you are fittingly enough, I just said moments ago, it's Thanksgiving. There are no hard feelings and no sweat when it's the holiday season. So I totally understand. How is the smoking the turkey going?
Well, we were putting all of this stuff in the middle and getting a probe in and getting it all spiced up, and we kind of lost track of time there. But I'm here. Let's do this.
You are here. Let's do this. We've got plenty to get to, so we'll whip through some of this real quickly. We're going to start on the basketball court with the Tang Gang because they've been playing so well. They just had a gritty win last night over Nevada in their toughest test yet. Now they've got another tough test tonight against LSU. Fitz, assuming you have paid for the Flow Hoops subscription and have gotten to watch these games, what has impressed you the most about what you've seen from K-State down in the Cayman Islands?
I have donated money to Flow Hoops for a far below average broadcast. That was good. They had kind of cruised to victory. Yeah, they had a little issue at Cal, but I felt like they were always going to win the Cal game. This game was in serious jeopardy. They really got pushed by Nevada, and Steve Alford is a good coach. He showed why he had success in the Mountain West before, and he really kind of manipulated his team into being in the game, and then K-State blows a lead, gets it back to overtime. They almost lost the game in regulation, and then kind of took over in overtime. That was good for this team. They needed to see what they were like under fire a little bit. They're going to have a lot of that in the Big 12. And Marquise Noel looked like a guy who played in the Big 12. And he also looks like a guy that has a better understanding of what he's supposed to do for this team as opposed to what he was doing last year, as he really did come through for the Wildcats. But as this team advances through this season, and maybe even tonight against LSU, they're going to have to learn what they are, who they are, what they do down the stretch of a game when it's all on the line. It just can't be Marquise Noel. They've got to have some other things all on the same page.
Let's flip it over to football here because we do want to get to the Sunflower Showdown. K-State heavy favorite over KU. Let's just go with the big question, the kind of the closing question first here, Fitz. K-State, last I checked, was an 11.5-point favorite. Do you think the Cats can cover that matchup at home in a rivalry they've dominated for approaching now a decade and a half?
Yeah, we'll have our pregame podcast. It'll go up at midnight. My key in that is Jalen Daniels. I mean, if he comes out and plays like he did earlier in the year, this is going to be an issue for K-State. But if he kind of is more timid like he was last week against Texas, K-State should cruise in this game unless they play awful, turn the ball over a bunch or something like that. I just feel like K-State's in a much better space right now than Kansas, but this is a unique opportunity for KU in the fact that this is a pretty darn good football team. They've had success this year, and they can certainly burst Kansas State's balloon by upsetting them on the home field. So there's a lot more at stake this game. I'm really going to be entertained. At the end of the day, I think that the spread is about an accurate reflection of what the game might turn out to be. But I also kind of believe it might just be, a nip and tuck game all the way to the end or a K-State blowout. We'll see what happens tomorrow night or Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the weekend already. We're that darn close to it. Yeah. I do want to bring up, based on what we've seen from these two teams, I mean, I said it earlier this week, and I think that on a play-to-play basis, K-State has a better opportunity to be explosive with the guy they've got at quarterback right now, Will Howard, and they have been. And, I mean, the offense was not an issue against West Virginia this past week. KU, meanwhile, defensively, I mean, Bijan Robinson, if he had wanted to go for 300 yards, he could have gotten there. He didn't even play the fourth quarter against KU last week. Robinson and Deuce Vaughn, obviously different kinds of running backs, but both All-American caliber players, certainly first-team All-Big 12 caliber players. Is this the kind of game where you think K-State should lean more on Deuce Vaughn to carry the load, or do you think you'd still keep attacking through the air with how well Howard's been throwing the ball?
They'll attack on the ground first and see what happens. I believe that, unless KU is totally selling out for that, which I don't think they can do after what Will Howard and company have shown. KU's run defense has completely collapsed. And, it wasn't just last week. It's really been struggling for a little while now. They're second to last in the Big 12 in rush defense, only ahead of Oklahoma, which is very strange. I thought they hired a defensive coach. But anyhow, it's going to be very interesting to see how they go about it. And in some ways, Adrian Martinez might have been the better quarterback for a game plan here if Kansas really can't stop the run. I don't know what they would do with those two. But Will Howard's an adequate runner. But if you're Chris Kleiman, you probably don't want to run him. You need him for next week. You got to be very careful here. You don't want to go into the Big 12 title game if you win this game with a third-string quarterback because you've got your first two guys hurt. So it will be fascinating to watch how they approach this. But I think they'll attack with Vaughn and DJ Giddens and maybe some jet sweeps and get after it. But you can always fall back on that arm of Will Howard and some receivers and the tight end Ben Sinnott, who are really coming into their own.
Defensively for K-State, like you mentioned, so much of this is going to be dictated, Fitz, as we're talking to Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. So much is going to be dictated by how confidently Jalen Daniels plays, given the injury and the recovery from that. But if we assume he's maybe a little less timid than he was this past week, but not fully 100% like he was early in the season, what do you make of the way the K-State defense matches up with a run-heavy, misdirection-heavy KU offensive attack, especially given all the injuries that K-State is starting to suffer on the back end?
Yeah, and that's really my concern isn't so much the back end and passing, but I think we saw it a little bit last week, the back end coming up to support the run. It wasn't quite the same without Kobe Savage. Now they don't have Sincere Mason. So they're down two of their top four safeties. They'll probably be less fresh back there. They might have to rotate in some younger guys who haven't been as good. They might have to, get some guys out there that haven't played. Maybe they'll try a corner at the nickel spot. We'll see what they do. But I do think this defense is fairly well equipped for this game because they can get pressure with just their front three or four guys and leave Daniel Green the spy on the quarterback, which he did last year and was so effective against this KU offense. And ironically, Daniel hit two quarterbacks so hard, perfectly legally, that he injured them and brought Daniels into the game and put him onto the playing field for Lance Leipold, and boom, he turned into something for him last year in beating Texas. So it's kind of a little strange how all that took place. But I think Daniel, now that he's healthy, is a good guy to try to run down Jalen Daniels. Look, let's be really honest here. If Jalen Daniels doesn't have his running threat, if he's not going to scramble around as much, if he's not going to run the option, they're not going to use him on design runs, he's not nearly as effective. It's the combination, it's the entire package that makes him so good.
All right, Fitz, we've got about a minute here. I've got two more real quick questions for you. Number one, on the football field, if K-State wins, and I think K-State's going to win this game too, and it's K-State versus TCU in the Big 12 title game, off the top of your head, what do you think the hypothetical spread would be for that game?
TCU by 3. I mean, you look at TCU's only favored by 10 over Iowa State. K-State's favored by 12 over Kansas. Granted, that calculates in the Iowa State defense, but I think right now Vegas sees some similarities between these teams.
I think you're right on with that. I think that's a pretty fair number. The last one I've got for you. We know you're smoking turkey for tomorrow. What's the dessert menu look like at Shea Fitzgerald for tomorrow night?
I'm told there's an apple pie inbound for me, which is my thing. And we'll have some pecan and I think some pumpkin coming. My niece is a great baker.
Ooh.
She is delivering the goods for her uncle on this Thanksgiving. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a big win for you. Tim Fitzgerald covers K-State with all of the tremendous, I don't know, that was kind of a weird sentence. All the great people who work for Fitz, the incredible crew at GoPowerCat.com. They do an amazing job covering all things K-State. Check them out at GoPowerCat.com. Follow Fitz as well on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Fitz, we appreciate the time. Get back in the kitchen. You got plenty of work to do.
35% off Black Friday sale right now through the weekend. Thanks, buddy. Good to talk to you.
That is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com, and there's that sale we were talking about. By the way, I want to get to this. We do have to get to a commercial break here at the top of the hour. We've got a text in from our guy Vance. The Thanksgiving dessert menu just today, working on banana cream pie, pumpkin bars, and peanut butter cup pie. That last one, that's my favorite. That is a hell of a Thanksgiving dessert menu. We've got to take a break. We're going to get to our headlines, Austin Moore, and more in the final half hour of 580 Sports Talk.